Welcome, everybody. We're going to pick up where we left off last week, and we were working on our unit for SQL exercises. And we had gotten to the point, and I'm just going to kind of zoom in on my code here a little bit just to kind of refresh what we did. We started by creating a brand new database from scratch. We called it My Database. We then attached to the database with a use statement because otherwise our queries don't work. Then we created two tables, or actually three tables, right? Three tables, student, department, and instructor. Right, and I'll just make the code window a little bit bigger here. You can see the structure of those tables here. So part of learning how to do these create commands, right, is learning about like how to name a field, what data type it should be, if it's like a character field, how big it should be, whether it should be allowed to be blank. So if we say not null, it can't be blank. Then we also looked at what a primary key is and how to set it, and what a foreign key is and what that means, right? So we did all of that stuff and we built these three tables as we were told to do, right? So we didn't do it just from our imagination. We had a set of instructions that was guiding us. Then we reached the part of the exercise where we needed to basically get information into the tables, and we started using the insert into command. And the way that that one works, just to kind of refresh your memory, is in this format, we declare which table we're inserting into, and then inside a set of parentheses, the columns and in which order. So it could be all the columns, it could just be part of the columns, right? That's interesting. And then we declare which values, and the values go in the data format and in the order prescribed by the creation of the table and the order of this list here. So in other words, the number one will go to department ID, and business information tech will go to the department name, right? This is an integer. This is a string of text. I use single quotes here. You could use double quotes. It's really pretty irrelevant, right? Then we added values to the department table. And we did, okay, so this was a test one, right? So we did a test one, and then we inserted the rest. My hope for you guys is you just did that all in one statement, and that's fine. But it is possible to do them individually as well. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and go back to the instructions here. So this is the unit 4. And I think I have it here as a Google Doc as well, if that's easier for some people. And we were doing our inserts, and I think I did a new table, insert this info into the department table. And then we reached this command here, and I will zoom in because I know that's very tiny. And basically the command is insert into the instructor table the following rows, and they show you what it should look like. And so you're given all the information. And so let's just start by building the query. So I'm going to start first by just adding some blank lines. I'm going to come back to the margin also, and I'm going to say insert into the instructor table. Why? Because that's what they told us to do. And I want you to notice what columns do we have. We have instructor ID, last name, first name, phone, and department. It is very fortunate that I just happen to have those on my other screen here, so I can just copy paste them. Right, so there they are. And then I'm closing the parentheses. Now you notice how it like automatically scrolled to the next line. That is because I had it indented on my other screen. You know, normally it would come in like this. Is it okay that it's like this or scrolled over to the next line? Yeah, it doesn't matter, real frankly. We do it like this just to make it easier for our eyes to see. If you can fit it all on one line and you're okay with looking at it that way, just do it. That's fine. The order is important though, right? And because all the information we're entering has to come in the same order that these fields are declared. It just happens to be the same order as the table. And if you're not sure, remember, you can click on the table in the schema panel here and you can see it, and you can see the data types, and that helps you build your queries, right? So you don't have to guess. The IntelliSense also kicks in. I will tell you that MySQL Workbench there, IntelliSense is not so fast sometimes. Like the more powerful your machine is and the more database work you do, the quicker it learns your databases. But it is a little clunky and slow, real frankly. All right, then we will determine what values we will add. And then basically what we'll do is we'll have basically a set of values, comma, a set of values, a set of values, and then inside the set of values will be all the data points, just like we have here, separated by commas. But the individual rows will be separated out just the way we have here. All right, I do notice that I misspelled values. I didn't add the S, but I do have the rest of the code here for this insert already created. So I'm just going to paste it in. So there it is. And then you see, I also added a random one with like a weird thing, or that must have been a topic of discussion. I don't think that was in the example necessarily. It doesn't matter, right? But this is the information that's going in, matches the stuff that we saw. Ideally, a match up all the phone numbers and all that stuff too. All the text is in single quotes. Notice that the phone number is in quotes, right? And you guys are like, why is that? Well, the phone number has non-numeric characters in there. So it's not really an integer, right? It's really text representing a phone number. All right. And we did set it up that way, bar car, right? If you ever hit a online form or a form in an application and you type in your phone number and they go, that's not a number. And it's like, but it is. That's my phone number. Right? That's probably the byproduct of something goofy like this. All right. I'm going to go ahead and run this query. And let's see how it works. There we go. I'm assuming it worked, but because I can't see the panel down here. And oh, I got my error. It says, the error says no database selected. What did I fail to do? And your brain should immediately now, hoping, right, it goes to, hey, you never did a use statement. You started working today and you never said what database you're using. All right. So I'll come up to my use statement. It's already built. Don't have to retype it. Right. And all I have to do is put my cursor on it, hit the selective run here with the lightning bolt with the cursor thing. And now we're attached. Now I can go back down to my query. Cursor can go anywhere inside here, hit that second lightning bolt, and now you'll see that it worked. And if I want to make sure that it worked, I want to see the information in the table, I can hit that little icon there, and there it is, right? All the stuff that I put in there is in there. All right. I am going to close that tab right now. All right. And this tab. All right. Let's move on to the next one. Hoping that worked okay for everybody. Right. Next task, and we'll go back to the document for this. This one, we're inserting student information. This is a little bit more verbose because you notice there's, not like 4 or 5 columns, like 7 or 8 columns. So ID, last, first, address, city, state, zip, phone, and date of birth, right? And we talked about the date format. Remember, year, month, day is how it likes to go in to a database system. All right, so let's start typing that one up. And just to kind of slightly accelerate the process here, I'm going to copy paste this stuff in chunks. So here's my insert statement, right? This is kind of scrolling over. So I'm kind of tempted to kind of do this with it. And this is very subjective, mind you. You don't need to do this. But if it's getting too wide for your screen, you can do that, right? It has no effect on how the code operates. So we're inserting into the student table, all the fields in the table in order. And then we're going to declare the values like we did before. And I want to go back to the margin here. There we go. And then I have pre-concocted all the data over here. And I'm dropping it all in one fell swoop, right? Same rules apply as before. For the student table, we have all these different data formats. These are the columns. So if you forget, you can look here. It also reminds you what format your data's in. And can I throw it like a curiosity for some of you? Did any of you think to do this, right? So I'm just throwing it out there as an idea. Like if you're looking at like this image and you're going, oh darn, that's an image, right? So I can't really take this and like copy the text out of it and then paste it into my SQL document and put my commas in and my quotes and you know what I'm talking about. You like find a way to like, man, I don't want to type each one of these things over and over again. And by the way, and I think this is kind of interesting. One of my first professional IT tasks, you know, when I first got hired out of school, so I graduated school, I went to a temp service, got a job. They put me in this publishing company, and the first thing they had me sit down and do was take all this I guess you would it's not fan mail, it was like you know you reader mail, and then take all the addresses and contents of the letters and transfer it into a database. So it was like manual data entry, and I basically would just like look at pieces of paper all day and type the stuff into a database. You know, like talk about exciting, right? But that's how you did it back then, right? What if can anybody think of a way that we could take that image and convert it to text? All right, I'm just going to throw it out there to you. There are programs that do that, by the way. So there's websites that do it. You can grab the image, drop it into a PDF. PDF, if you use Adobe, they've got an OCR tool built into it. There's other free OCR tools. But I discovered by the recommendation of one of the other instructors here at Gateway, because we're now being tasked, by the way, to take whatever images we put in Brightspace and add alt text that has the same text inside of it. So people who are blind or deaf or whatever and use screen readers or other weird tools to look at the content can't see the words in an image, but it's still important to be able to look at them. So like, what if you were a blind student trying to do this exercise, right? And I haven't run into that one yet, but right, that becomes an issue. That's why, you know, we talk about this. But I discovered that Chat GPT, I just grabbed an image of a little calendar that I made before I posted it in my new course that started on Monday, asp.net. I don't know if any of you guys are in that or not. And then I asked it to OCR this image file and extract the text, and it did it beautifully. All right, now I'm not saying you should do that, but if you don't want to type it all, okay. Now, granted, we're contending with I don't know, like 5 students, not a big deal. But if it was an image that had 1,000 students or 100 students, and you could save yourself all that time, would you not do it professionally? And if I was taking that job today instead of 30 years ago when I did, and the tool was available, and they gave me a whole stack of work and I could just walk in and go, okay, I'm done, you know, because I had something to help me, would you not do it? You know, and that's kind of the thing. So whatever your technique is, there is some benefit, real frankly, to be able to look at something on a piece of paper or a screen and be able to type it in accurately. That's another aspect of this, and not have to look at your hands while you do it, all that kind of stuff. So whatever. And one of the reasons I'm doing this, it gives you a chance here to screenshot this and capture it, you know, if you don't want to put in all the stuff yourself. I did try to make sure that all the data that I put in here was exactly matched to what was in the image though. So I'm just trying to give you guys strategies, basically for working smart, basically. All right, I'm going to go ahead and run this query. Let's do that. All right, it says it did it. So let's go to student. Let's take a look. And there are my students, all 8 of them, or whatever it is. Hopefully that worked for you too. Now we move on to the tail end of the document where the questions get a little more interesting in terms of what you're trying to do. So now we have all the data in there. And now we want to run basically some queries to see if what we built really works as a database and can we like extract information from it. All right, so it says display, right? It doesn't say query, mind you, right? So this is like display only the columns student ID, student last name, and student first name, and order them by student last name from the student table. All right, this is just practice with queries, folks. All right, so let's build that. So we'll type select Um, and we were asked to do student ID, student last name, student first name from the student table. And then we were asked to order by student last name. All right. Hopefully you guys have the same query. Right. And notice I'm not putting any comments on this SQL file and telling you which number we're on, but whatever. I think you guys know where we're at. So I'm going to go ahead and run this one here. Here's the run. All right. And there we go. Those are all the students with just their ID, last, and first name. It is ordered by last name. That's a pretty typical ordering for looking at a student list. All right, let's move on to the next one. All right, next one is modify. All right, so here's an, what command does this imply? It should be update, right? That should work, because we're updating it. Modify the student record for student ID 123 to have this phone number. Well, it just happens to be sitting there, so let's copy it. All right. Now let's go back and start building the query for it. And we'll start with the update command. Okay, what table are we updating, or what table contains the information that we're updating? We're going to update the student table, and then we'll use the set command to say student phone equals, and then the student phone just happens to be here in the schema table. It is a character, so it has to go inside of double quotes to be valid, or single quotes. I've been using double or single so far, but I'll show you double works just fine as well. And then we will only change it where the student ID equals, and then I want you to notice what is the student ID? Is that an integer? It looks like an integer, right? Now, I'm having it look it up. So should I really just type straight like this? Yes or no? What do you guys think? Nobody has anything to say? Right, because it's an integer. All right, you know what? Let's find out if it works. All right. Update student where student ID equals 123. Right. It says rows matched, and I want you to look at the output here. Rows matched 1, changed 1, warnings 0. Right. So it didn't change the whole table. How can I make sure? Well, I can look at the table again, and wherever the student ID was 123, we have that new phone number, which was the 888-1234. Now, I want you to be mindful, and this is where that safe mode thing comes into play. If I hadn't put this in, everybody's phone number in the table would be the same. So the where statement when you do an update is really critical for narrowing down which record you're affecting or group of records. I mean, maybe you want to set everybody's, phone number to the same thing. I'm not sure why, but maybe. Okay. All right. Any issues with that one, you guys? You guys are okay? All right. Let's try the next one. The next one will have us try deleting. Right. It says delete the student record for ID 135 with and vary. Okay, that is really kind of weird. Okay, syntax. And with a select statement that the student record, and I think that's supposed to say verify. I don't know how that got changed, but thank God it's Google Doc because it's already updated, right? I'll have to check the Word doc now to see if it's an error there too. I apologize. All right. And then we want to verify that the record was deleted. All right. So let's go back. This is a very simple command too. And we'll just say, what table are we doing this action in? We're going to delete from the student table where the student ID equals 135, semicolon, right? And is that all we were asked to do? Delete the student record, right? So this student is going away, basically. All right. Before I run that query, and I'm just going to do this here, I'm going to run that student table. So we're going to be getting rid of George Adams, it seems. All right. So let's go back to the SQL file here. My cursor's there, so I'm going to run it. Looks like it worked. Then I'm going to run this query again. It opens up in a new tab, and you see there's one less student, and George is gone. All right. And when we say verify, we want to see the output, to verify that it's gone. And here's the other thing. Once that record is gone, and I want you guys to keep this in mind, a database, there's no undo. I can't bring it back. It's just gone. Okay. That might be one of the hardest, lessons to learn. All right. Next one says here, delete the record for department ID number 4 from the department table. And then it asks, did it work? And if it didn't, why didn't it work? All right, so let's write the query first. And you know what? I want to remember the department table just has department ID and department name, and it looks like this. Okay. And they want us to delete electronics. All right, so let's go write the command for that. Should be pretty simple. Very, very simple, actually. So from department, we're deleting that, where the department ID equals, and that's an integer, so I can just write it as a 4. All right. And are there any issues here? Well, we don't know yet. Let's try running it. Here's the run, and it failed, and it says cannot delete or update a parent row. A foreign key constraint fails. My database instructor constraint instructor, and it actually goes in there and tells you what the constraint is and what the issue is, and it tells you why there's a constraint, meaning we're restricted somehow because of this foreign key, basically. And you notice as I hover over this, I can see the whole thing, and it tells me that the foreign key references the instructor department. So in other words, when we built this, right, this department ID, which is a primary key here, was a foreign key, right, in the instructor table, right? Meaning for somebody to work in this department, the department has to exist. If I go deleting the department and somebody works for it, I can't do that because then where are they working? Right? Better change their department first. So if I look at the instructor table and I go, well, I have like 2 people that work in electronics, I can't delete the department until I fire them or move them to a different department. But if I were to update these 2 to, let's say, be department 3 or 6 or something new, then I could delete it if nobody had that connected. That's the why. Right. All right. Also, once again, I'm just going to reiterate, be careful with these. Make sure you have a where statement in there. If you have safe mode turned off, it is possible to completely destroy your data. And you do not want to do that. All right, that wraps up the exercises. I'm going to stop the video here, folks.